जय सावित्री, जय भीम साथियों। आप सब आज मूक नाइक के 1 साल पूरे होने पे इस चर्चा से जुड़े। आपका बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया एंड आई वेलकम ऑल द पैनलिस्ट टुडे एंड थैंक यू सो मच फॉर कमिंग। आज का विषय है कि अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मीडिया से क्यों जातीय मुद्दे हमें नज़र नहीं आते हैं। जैसे हमारे देश में दलित आदिवासी पत्रकार काफ़ी कम है, लेकिन अभी उभर के आ रहे हैं और मूक नायक जैसे चैनल जो दलित, आदिवासी और बहुजनों की आवाज़ बुलंद कर रहे हैं। आज भी अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मीडिया पे ये जातीय मुद्दे नहीं दिखाई देते हैं। तो इसी पे आज चर्चा है और आज इस चर्चा में जुड़े हैं याशिका दत्त जी, जो खुद एक पत्रकार हैं, लेखिका हैं और अभी उनको हाल ही में साहित्य अकादमी युवा पुरस्कार मिला है अपनी किताब कमिंग आउट एज़ दलित के लिए। बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया यहाँ आने का मैम।
Thank you so much.
हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं दादा साहेब तांडले जी। वो एक अम्बेडकराइट स्कॉलर हैं। वो पीएचडी कर रहे हैं यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ मैसाचुसेट्स बॉस्टन से and he has worked extensively in research and he also aims to build an oral history project of the Ambedkarite movement in the US. अब बहुत शुक्रिया यहाँ आने के लिए आज।
थैंक यू।
और हमारे साथ जुड़ी हैं ऋतुपर्णा चैटर्जी जी। वो खुद एक जर्नलिस्ट हैं और क्यूरेटर है हैशटैग मीटू इंडिया की और अभी वो डिप्यूटी एशिया एडिटर है इंडिपेंडेंट पे। Very thank you so much for like joining with us and so let's start with the discussion. So जैसे मैंने बोला कि इंटरनेशनल मीडिया में इंडिया पे बात होती है एंड रिसेंटली हमने देखा काफ़ी चर्चाएं हो रही हैं बट आज भी हम जो कास्ट पे जो मुद्दे हैं वो नहीं आते हैं। आते हैं तो वो एक मैनुअल स्कैवेंजिंग तक सीमित रह जाते हैं या फिर ऐसे एट्रोसिटीज़ जो बहुत ग्रूसम होते हैं तभी कास्ट का थोड़ा बहुत कवरेज हमें देखने को मिलता है। सो आई जस्ट वांटेड टू नो फ्रॉम यू ऋतुपर्णा मैम, like why is that? Like why international media is not taking cognizance of caste-based discrimination in India?
सुप्रकाश, लाइक यू आपने जो बोला वो बिल्कुल ही सही है। जब जैसे आपने शुरू किया ना कि एट्रोसिटीज जब होते हैं तभी होता है। इट्स नॉट ऐसा नहीं है कि कास्ट के बारे में नहीं लिखा जाता है, स्पेशली आजकल ज्यादातर आजकल ज्यादा इतने सारे इंटरनेट बूम जब से हुआ है, देयर आर इतने सारे इंडिपेंडेंट मीडिया वेबसाइट्स है इंडिया में ही नहीं, देश के बाहर भी। तो the internet has been opened up to a far bigger greater audience and इसलिए ज्यादा रिपोर्टिंग ज्यादा हो रहा है। बट मैं दो चीज शेयर करना चाहूंगी जस्ट टू डिस्कशन को स्टार्ट करने के लिए। 20 साल मैंने इस प्रोफेशन में बिताए हैं, तो कुछ ऑब्जर्वेशंस मान लीजिए इसको। तो एक चीज है कि फॉरेन मीडिया बिल्कुल कास्ट पे लिखते हैं, ऐसा नहीं है बिल्कुल नहीं लिखते हैं, पर वो इतना, क्योंकि उनका ऑडियंस ग्लोबल ऑडियंस होता है, उनका ऑडियंस इंडियन ऑडियंस नहीं होता है, इसीलिए इतना डाइल्यूट हो जाता है कास्ट आइडेंटिटी, कास्ट पॉलिटिक्स, इनका जो न्यूआंस है, कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी है, जो कि मतलब देश पे रहने से जो रियलिटी है, ऑप्रेस्ड मार्जिनलाइज्ड कास्ट के लोगों की रियलिटी, वो बहुत ही डाइल्यूट करके जैसे परोसते हैं हम, मतलब बच्चों को आसान तरीके से कास्ट समझाने का 101 उपाय टाइप का हो जाता है। तो उसमें वो होता है, यूजुअली देखा जाता है, so that a global audience understands that, without going into too much depth of the nuances of India's caste system, उनको समझ में आ जाए। दूसरी बात है कि जब आपने बिल्कुल सही कहा कि कौन से स्टोरीज रिपोर्ट होते हैं जो दलित बॉडीज पे, स्पेशली विमेन, दलित विमेन बॉडीज पे जो टॉर्चर, रेप, गैंग रेप, अत्याचार होता है, जो कि समटाइम्स जो विक्टिम होते हैं उनका आप देखा जाए तो ये बहुत ही they come from a section of economically also a downtrodden section of society, जिनका access सीमित होता है इंटरनेट पे. उनकी स्टोरी, उनकी विक्टिमहुड, उनकी सर्वाइवरशिप, उन पे उनका कंट्रोल उनसे ये नहीं है कि उनका कंट्रोल नहीं है, पर उनका कंट्रोल उनसे छीना जाता है. और उनके स्टोरीज जो बताए जाते हैं वो एक्सट्रीम वायलेंस वाली, जिसमें कभी कभार विक्टिम का जो हर स्टोरी का, हर वायलेंट स्टोरी का सेंटर कौन होता है, द सर्वाइवर, द विक्टिम, राइट, वो उनका बिल्कुल वो अस्तित्व मिटा दिया जाता है. एंड इट बिकम्स अ स्टोरी ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स एंड अ वेरी डाइल्यूट स्टोरी ऑफ इंडिया इन वेरी ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट शेड्स. सो या तो Dalit women have to be brutalized for the world to know them, and or their, so इसमें क्या सबसे बड़ी जो इससे लॉस होता है, दैट इज व्हाट आई फील इज दलित सर्वाइवरशिप, दलित सेलिब्रेशन ऑफ दलित आइडेंटिटी. उनके स्टोरीज कितने आते हैं, मैं हाथ से गिन के बोल सकती हूँ दलित अचीवमेंट के स्टोरीज, that they have achieved something. Yashika is a great example of this. When she came out, with her story, and there were so many people trying to, pull her down. I'm sorry, Yashika, I'm not speaking on your behalf.
No, please go ahead. आप बिल्कुल सही बोल रही हैं ऋतुपर्णा. I'm happy.
No, I'm just like
Absolutely.
what I observed at that time, because she had to defend her success. And I was watching this, and याशिका को explain करना पड़ा कि क्यों मैं अपना story खुद बोल सकती हूँ, and क्यों this is not, that Dalit celebration can go with privilege, can go with what she has attained. This is she was a great example of that. So yes, these two narratives I have seen in the last 20 years. Abhi jaake, congratulations on ek saal pe Mook Naik ka. Abhi jaake, we need more platforms like Mook Naik, especially to wrest this narrative back from Savarna media, back into the hands of Dalits who can tell their own stories. लोग बोलते हैं कि आप वॉइस बनो, किसी को किसी का वॉइस बनने की जरूरत नहीं है, आप प्लेटफॉर्म बनो, बस वॉइस है, लोगों के पास वॉइस आ जाएंगे. So as the discussion progresses, I will come back to opening of avenues, that this media space is controlled so much by Savarna journalists, and that there is a huge and immediate need for opening up this avenue. I will not take more of the opening time, and I will hand over the mic.
Yeah. So Yashika, like, I read your book and it actually inspired me to write my recent story on Rest of World. So
wow, congratulations. Thank you so much.
And so I just wanted to know, like, since you have raised the issue of caste and caste discrimination in the US, can you just explain to me, like, do these international editors in these international newsrooms don't understand caste or don't want to understand the caste? Like, what is the reason they are not picking up, like, stories which are very important in India? Because caste is something which is ingrained in every aspect of our lives. It's not a small number. It's 350 million people, like,
absolutely,
and Adivasi people. So what is the reason, like, they are completely ignoring the Dalit Adivasi issues?
Thank you so much, Suprakash. And first of all, thank you to all the panelists, Rituparna, Dada Sahib, Bhanwar ji. मैं थोड़ा हिंदी और इंग्लिश के कॉम्बिनेशन में बात कर सकती हूँ क्योंकि मैं राजस्थान से हूँ तो हिंदी थोड़ी बहुत आती है. Also मूक नायक की ऑडियंस, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल मूक नायक, आप लोगों ने जो अचीव किया है एक साल में, मीना जी और पूरी टीम, मतलब काबिल तारीफ है. बोलना जितना बोल सकते हैं उतना कम है क्योंकि बहुजन दलित मीडिया चलाना इंडिया में बहुत मुश्किल काम है और आप लोगों ने सिर्फ एक साल में चलाए नहीं है, बहुत सक्सेसफुली इस मीडिया मिशन को आपने अकम्प्लिश किया है. तो प्लीज एक्सेप्ट माय हार्टिएस्ट कांग्रेचुलेशंस. और सुप्रकाश, आई वांट टू बिल्ड ऑन द डिस्कशन दैट ऋतुपर्णा जी ने ऑलरेडी काफी अच्छे से स्टार्ट किया है. तो आई थिंक मैं बोलना चाहूंगी कि आई एग्री विद मोर और लेस ऑल ऑफ हर पॉइंट्स, बट जो मेरा ऑब्जर्वेशन वो है कि क्यों हमें कास्ट के बारे में इंटरनेशनली सुनने को नहीं मिलता है. इट्स बिकॉज इट इज how we project caste in India. अगर हम मेन स्ट्रीम, हम इंटरनेशनल न्यूज रूम्स में देखेंगे, जैसे कि ऋतुपर्णा ने पॉइंट आउट किया कि वो अपने ऑडियंस को सर्व कर रहे हैं, वो एक ग्लोबल ऑडियंस को सर्व कर रहे हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, लेट्स लुक एट गार्डियन, लेट्स लुक एट न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स. तो उन लोग का मिशन है कि इंडिया का एक इमेज ग्लोब में प्रेजेंट करना. तो पहले तो उनका खुद का लेंस है कि वो इंडिया सब कॉन्टिनेंट, इंडियन सब कॉन्टिनेंट, वेदर इट्स इंडिया, पाकिस्तान, बांग्लादेश, श्रीलंका, नेपाल, वो उस एरिया को कैसे व्यू करते हैं. उनका खुद का एक एग्जॉटिक लेंस है जो हम लोग को, जिससे वो हम लोग को पाते हैं, जिससे वो हम लोग को देख पाते हैं. उनके लिए हम लोगों को पहली बात तो इक्वल, फॉर अ मेनली वाइट कल्चर, टू लुक एट साउथ एशियंस एज इक्वल, वो ही अपने आप में बहुत बड़ी बात है. उसके बाद मतलब दैट्स द फर्स्ट बैरियर. अब देखिए पिछले सालों में, यू कैन से अ डेकेड और सो, एक्टिविज्म ऑफ स्पेशली ब्लैक एंड ब्राउन पीपल, जहाँ पे उन्होंने बोला है कि आप सो कॉल्ड थर्ड वर्ल्ड, जो जिसमें हम रहते हैं, साउथ एशिया, जिसको थर्ड वर्ल्ड, डेवलपिंग वर्ल्ड बोलते हैं, आप उसको एक एग्जॉटिक गेज से नहीं देख सकते हैं. यू हैव टू लुक एट देम एज पीपल. तो पहले ही वो हम लोगों को, इंडियंस एज जनरल, वो सोचते हैं कि देयर इज अ वन टाइप ऑफ स्टोरी दैट नीड्स टू बी टोल्ड. On top of that, speaking of nuance, क्योंकि कोई भी चीज मतलब ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट नहीं होती है, उसमें काफी सारे कॉम्प्लिकेशंस होते हैं. तो द सेकंड थिंग कि इंडिया की जो इमेज प्रोजेक्ट की गई है, वो क्या इमेज है, दैट नीड्स टू बी अंडरस्टूड. बिकॉज इफ यू लुक एट द पास्ट 75-year हिस्ट्री, द 70+ year हिस्ट्री ऑफ इंडिया, हम लोग जो मतलब ग्लोबली हमारी जो इमेज है, वो कंस्ट्रक्टेड इंडिया से ही हुई है. वेदर लोग हमें सोचते हैं कि हम एग्जॉटिक हैं, वी आर ऑल अबाउट हिंदुइज्म एंड योगा एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट, वो भी कंस्ट्रक्शन इंडियन से ही आया है. सो दिस आइडिया दैट कास्ट इज नॉट इम्पोर्टेंट, वो आइडिया इंडियन जर्नलिस्ट से और इंडियन न्यूज रूम से उन्होंने पिक किया है. क्योंकि इंटरनेशनल मीडिया, अनफॉर्चुनेटली, वो लोग दे रिलाई अ लॉट ऑन व्हाट इंडियन जर्नलिस्ट themselves are portraying the image of the country as. और if we look at it, कौन है हमारे इंडियन जर्नलिस्ट जो इंडिया को रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं? Almost all of them, and in fact all of them, I wouldn't even say almost. आप अगर कोई भी इंटरनेशनल यूएस में आउटलेट उठा के देखेंगे, they always have plenty of Indian origin names. आप उनका लास्ट नेम देखेंगे, सबकी सब अपर कास्ट हैं. तो it's not important to them to talk about caste on a personal level, but on a structural level, जिस तरह से जर्नलिज्म का आइडिया कंस्ट्रक्ट किया गया है, जिस तरह से हमारी गवर्नमेंट ने पास्ट 70+ years में इंडिया का आइडिया कंस्ट्रक्ट किया है, उसमें उन्होंने यही नैरेटिव सबको बोला है कि कास्ट मैटर करता ही नहीं है. कास्ट के बारे में बात करना is to divide the country. ये जो हम नैरेटिव सुनते हैं, ये मतलब they're not coming out of thin air. ये बीज जो हमारे बीच में हैं, आइडियाज के बीज, ये बहुत केयरफुली सोए गए हैं. मतलब they've been sowed, उनको बोया गया है, उनको सींचा गया है. Especially since the 90s, जो मंडल कमीशन का आइडिया था, उसमें जब रेजर्वेशन, एंटी रेजर्वेशन प्रोटेस्ट हुए, तो कास्ट का एक नैरेटिव बन गया कि कास्ट इज ऑल अबाउट रेजर्वेशन. तो फिर वो इंटरनेशनल मीडिया ने वो नैरेटिव पिक किया. पर कोई ये सोचा ही नहीं किसी ने कि दलित लोग इंसान भी हैं. They have the same lives that anybody else, even in the Western world, does. We're not just perpetual victims. We're not just people who are constantly brutalized. हम लोग इंसान हैं, हमारे भी कुछ ख्वाब हैं, कुछ सपने हैं, कुछ एस्पिरेशंस हैं. और स्ट्रक्चरली हमें क्या फेस करना पड़ता है बीइंग दलित इन इंडिया, ऊपर से उस नैरेटिव को सप्रेस किया जाता है. So it's a very nuanced, if you look at it, this complex idea of why caste doesn't exist. And I just want to say one more thing before I pass the mic, कि आप अगर आज भी कास्ट के बारे में लिखना चाहेंगे न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स में या किसी भी आउटलेट में, तो you have to go through the gatekeepers who are Indian journalists, who are Savarnas. वो डिसाइड करते हैं कि ये इंडिया स्टोरी इंपॉर्टेंट है या नहीं. तो this narrative, who gets to decide whether caste needs to be talked about, is being filtered through a Savarna lens, which is why it's impossible almost to talk about issues that they don't think are important. अगर उनको लगता है कि caste important नहीं है, अगर दलित सेलिब्रेशन इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है, लाइक फॉर एग्जाम्पल जब भीम जी पारन जी का जो दलित सेलिब्रेशन फेस्टिवल हुआ था एंड ऑफ दिसंबर, I tried to write about it with a lot of international news media outlets, but it wasn't picked up because it's not a case of atrocity. It's not a case of violence. It's a cause for Dalit celebration. अगर वो celebration कोई upper caste celebration हुआ होता तो शायद उसको थोड़ा सा फुटेज ज्यादा मिलता. सो इट्स जस्ट लाइक लाइव एंड क्लियर एग्जाम्पल. ऑफ कोर्स हम लोग और भी बात कर सकते हैं इस बारे में, बट ये अगर हम कास्ट के बारे में नहीं पढ़ रहे हैं इंटरनेशनली, I would say it's because of the ignorance of mainstream non-South Asians across the world, and because of Indian journalists, specifically South Asian journalists, who don't think caste is an important narrative to consider. उनके लिए मतलब वो the Prince story is more exotic. That you know, we know that New York Times story that was very talked about became a huge. It's now being made into a series, and it's an important story. But there are so many stories about caste that are equally important too. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Like I completely agree with you. Like first barrier are the gatekeepers, and they are like our own Indian people working in these organizations. Uh, so coming to Dada Sahib, like you are like working in the US and trying to like enlighten the US population about the caste system. And like what I personally feel like have felt while pitching and talking to a lot of these white editors in international media, they know what caste system is, they know what like who Dalits are, but they don't have the knowledge that how does it affect the political structure or the social structure of India. Like for them, like Dalits are some minority living in some excluded part of India. So how if I ask you, like, what reactions do you get to your like circle who are like American, white American people mostly, I guess, when you mention and try to explain them what caste is?
So, JBM everyone, and thank you, the Muknaik, for inviting me to this panel and understanding the grammar of journalism. And Rutuparna and Deshika, I was like just wanted to listen you more to learn more about it. So, unfortunately, time made me to talk now. So, before starting, I would like to congratulate the Muknaik and their team for wonderful work. And I know like mm, Meena was very much passionate about working in journalism, and as Ishika was telling, like all the domain is encroached by Savarna, and Meena showed them that you can't keep me away from this anymore. I will start my own, and the Muknaik is the best platform because it is the legacy of Dr. Ambedkar. He started Muknaik, and Meena is taking it ahead with the Muknaik, and my best wishes and my all whatever contribution I can give from my lens and perspective, I would do to strengthen this platform. And thank you, Meena, once more for initiating this platform and being a woman, especially Dalit woman in India, to like give a statement. This is a statement I feel. So thank you so much, and we are looking forward to learn from you a lot. So now coming to the topic or coming to the discussion, like before going to or like seeing what people react or what people like how they discuss caste with me, maybe Rituparna and Ishika has already spoken a lot about that, how this Western globe or hemisphere looks upon caste, and it is a just story for them, and that atrocity story for them, because that gives him maybe like maybe TRP or maybe a lot of money for them with the stories people reading them. So first of all, as a researcher in exclusion and inclusion, I would like to like educate or maybe discuss with everyone that why first of all why it is important to discuss caste in global media. First, world is committed to bring change or end discrimination, and the proof of that is the document SDG, that is Sustainable Development Goal. By 2030, world has decided or committed to bring change that to sustainable change by ending discrimination. And there are three goals which are actually talk about that. Sustainable Development Goal 10 talks about reducing inequities. Sustainable Development Goal 16 talks about strengthening institutions, and 17 talks about partnership. For ending caste system, we need to strengthen media, which is one of the institutions. And for doing this, we need partnership. And the Sustainable Development Goal 17 says that the partnership means the rich or big countries like US has to support or has to lend their hands or holding hands, whatever supremacy they have within them in the system, to help or support countries like India and populations which are excluded in countries like India. And when I'm saying India, it is South Asia. And when I'm saying South Asia, 250 millions, roughly 250 millions are Dalits. I would like restrain myself calling them Dalit. I would say like oppressed castes. Like in Nepal, I'm just talking about Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India. 250 millions, which is around a population of US. US is 330 million, I guess, around 330 million. So while saying this, now why US or why globally we should discuss? I would like to go back to Dr. Ambedkar. I would like to quote him. He says, if Hindus migrate to the other regions on the earth, India caste would become a world problem. And yes, today it is. Globalization has brought or taken Indians away because of their disproportionate population in the world. They are 1/5 in the world and they are across the globe. And when he said this in 1930s, the recent document in 2016, which is UN document, and a UN rapporteur, special rapporteur on minority issues, Rita Isabel Dane, she says during her presentation, first comprehensive report on caste-based discrimination, she wrote that caste is a global problem affecting communities in Asia, Africa, Middle East, the Pacific region, and in various diaspora communities. And this violence goes against the basic principle of universal human dignity and equity. Now, I'm connecting just 1930 and I'm connecting to 2016. And I just want to like shift the frame and discuss that how important and how effective global media is. The moment one of the celebrity wrote about farmers issues in India, the entire Indian celebrities or whatever whoever say they posted a common post of these are internal matter and don't discuss about it. See the power of one tweet by an international personality or international media, whatever platforms we see, and it came to this. And even the people like Rutuparna was discussing, even the people here who are, I would like to say, dominant caste or not conscientized because of their caste or because of their caste identity, wrote tons, were on roads in that winter or whatever, and all wearing coats and all that, and they were here with everything coming together, like with the signs and posts of different all these things. And that time, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, everyone, they came together and they were able to come together and bring together. Now, when it comes to caste, I really like Rituparna said, that they only like atrocities. They only like to discuss the bodies about Dalit women when it comes to there, and they don't want to discuss about all these things because of, I feel, because of their lack of concentration about caste and their need to be de-learning. The moment that reservation and something came in India, the entire educated Indians or South Asians who were staying away, got a narrative that these people are taking away our whatever privileges in India are because of the like something document called Constitution. And since that time, it has been grown that these people, like right now the case of like California State University, some professor or someone, he said that it's like Holocaust. Like I don't know if maybe they have ever visited or stayed in oppressed community like ghettos in India. They will understand it is much more worse than what they are discussing about. I'm like not commenting on that, but I'm just saying that how their narration and how they are building narration here in US or people. And when I'm talking like coming here, when I'm talking about like caste and all that, as Rutuparna and Ishika was saying, like they all know about yoga and culture and all that. And when I discuss caste system about them, they said, oh, it's about karma and all. Means like that is the narration. The caste that is given to them because of karma and all. And I don't know, like means I get blank for some time, not agitated because it is not new for me, because I'm expecting some mercy or someone from oppressors of oppressors. Means I'm feeling like this Western Hemisphere is like forefather of our Brahminical society. They are much more ahead than them. So I'm expecting them to show that understanding of caste. And maybe that is like futile, or maybe that is my aspiration that one day we'll be successful, or we want them to learn, and hopefully we'll do that. So, and this is the reason actually why the caste narration has to change, because first it is like misappropriation of that karma and all that. They don't know it is all human made, and it is just a systemic operation which allows them to stay in that powerful positions. And second, Dalits or oppressed caste, they don't only get that raped, gang raped up. They don't only get killed. They have a life. They have a life, and their life is much more serious. They celebrate everything. They celebrate just having new clothes. They celebrate just having a haircut. So, and I'm not feeling that. I'm not expecting them to write about all these things. I'm just expecting them to include the voices, which is a theory of inclusion. Like, if you want to understand more, please come and discuss with us more. If you're before making a story, don't talk to someone whose surname doesn't align with the victim, or doesn't align with someone who has been seeing this. Go to someone, like, make that efforts. And internet, Rituparna said, internet, just Google it, my friends, just Google it. You don't have to like follow someone, just Google it, like surname. I do that sometimes. Like, if I'm confused that this surname doesn't belong to certain caste, I just Google it, what surname this thing. And I hope this Western globe has given us internet, like, make good use of that to understand our issues as well. Like, instead of understanding from someone, understand from our lenses. So, like, I have a lot to say, but I would like to go with, maybe I would have answered you some, like, in between somewhere, Suprakash. Hopefully we'll discuss more about this.
So yeah, actually completely agree with you. So coming to Rituparna, like, you how you said, like, the international media has their own audience. They have to like feed their audiences की जैसे बच्चे को समझाते हैं कि ये है कास्ट ऐसे. But in the like past few years, like after 2014 maybe, India has been in the limelight in some very prestigious international organizations and newspapers such as NYT, Time Magazine, etc. So they are actually talking about some issues which are deeper into the society. For example, the atrocities against the Muslims, the Muslim community. And yeah, so they have actually dissected it and have mentioned how it is a like societal issue, a systemic issue, but still caste is not there. Like, what is the reason behind that? Because like, whenever I talk to an international editor, like, I have to explain them like what Dalit is, what caste system is, how does it impact. It's basically like explaining them who I am, why I am oppressed, and it's sometimes it feels really absurd to me. So uh, like, why is that? Like, they don't even know what a caste system is.
वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. सो आई जस्ट अभी ना मुझे याद आया, हाल ही में एक शो आया था, मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा है शो का नाम, बट उसमें एक डायलॉग था जो मैंने जब सुना मुझे ताली बजाने का मन कर रहा था, कि जिसको अपना कास्ट नहीं पता वो अपर कास्ट है.
Yeah.
तो मुझे एक्चुअली शो का नाम याद नहीं आ रहा है. ये कितना सही है, आई कैन नॉट टेल यू. सो caste divide and being acutely aware of your caste becomes more and more pronounced. ये ज्यादा पता लगता है जब आप दिल्ली, बॉम्बे, मुंबई, चेन्नई से थोड़ा आगे जाके आप स्मॉलर टाउन्स एंड सिटीज के न्यूज रूम में जाइएगा. ठीक है, क्योंकि वहां का जो सेटअप है, हर जर्नलिस्ट को पता है कि कौन उसमें उनके साथ जो काम करते हैं उनका कास्ट क्या है, वो कहाँ से आते हैं, उनके घर वाले क्या करते हैं, वो कहाँ पे रहते हैं. ये बहुत साल पहले, अब दिल्ली के न्यूज, मैं दिल्ली में काम किया है, सॉरी मेरा हिंदी थोड़ा खराब है, तो दिल्ली के न्यूज रूम में ही आपको सुनाई देगा, मुझे तो पता भी नहीं है, ये मतलब ये डिस्क्रिमिनेशन कैसे हो सकता है जब मुझे पता ही नहीं है मेरा कास्ट क्या है, मैंने जिंदगी में कभी डिस्क्रिमिनेट नहीं किया है. ये मैंने खुद सुना है, that I don't know my own caste, how can I discriminate against somebody else. मुझे मेरी मम्मी पापा ने कभी नहीं बोला what caste we are. So that dialogue just sat, within me, because it is so true. So why does this happen? Coming back to your question, आपको अगर आपका सवाल का जवाब अगर देना है, तो ये जो प्रिविलेज है, ये जो आप एक सेम इंडिया में हम लोग जी रहे हैं, पर सरनेम का पता नहीं है कि क्या आपका सरनेम किस कास्ट से बिलोंग होता है, ये एक प्रिविलेज है. ये प्रिविलेज सबको नहीं होता है, ये सिर्फ अपर कास्ट डोमिनेंट कास्ट के लोगों को ही ये प्रिविलेज है, बचपन से लेके जब तक वो मतलब जवानी तक और आगे. डोमिनेंट कास्ट के लोगों को कभी कहीं जाने में कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, वो खुला जा सकते हैं कहीं पे भी, ठीक है. they have their own problems and issues. It's not that everybody, we cannot generalize, but they will never live the reality of a Dalit. So coming back to your question, that why is it that caste people are so caste unconscious in some newsrooms, in some media setup, because they benefit from it. न्यूज़रूम में कौन होता है? एडिटर लोग होते हैं, रिपोर्टर्स लोग होते हैं, सब एडिटर्स होते हैं. न्यूज़रूम इज नॉट अ होमोजीनियस एंटिटी. न्यूज़रूम में कई तरह के लोग होते हैं, और कौन किस पोजीशन में बैठे हैं न्यूज़रूम में इज ऑल्सो अ कास्ट सिस्टम. The rung of people that editors and they occupy, and is determined by who they are, determined by their surnames, determined by their privilege. There is financial inequities also. I am not going to say there isn't. There are people like everybody else. People have to struggle. ऐसे कई सारे लोग हैं dominant caste के जो struggle करते हैं. Financially they've struggled, they've established themselves, become editors. Very good, kudos to them. But they will never be told कि आप मंदिर में नहीं जा सकते, आप इनके साथ नहीं बैठ सकते, आप यहां से पानी नहीं पी सकते. जितना भी उनका फाइनेंशियल ट्रबल हो, जितना भी जो कुछ भी लाइफ में उन्होंने देखा है, ये कभी नहीं देखे हैं, ठीक है. सो these people occupy the top levels. Now if they are the gatekeepers, अगर ये दरवान है सारे स्टोरीज का, जो कंटेंट जाएगा, जो मोबाइल पे जाएगा, तो what sort of stories will happen? They will happen only with a certain lens, and that lens is Savarna lens. So I hope this discussion, while it goes through the problems, I hope this discussion also goes through the solutions, because there is a larger allyship that a lot of us are trying to build. There is this sense of of creating spaces, vacating spaces, empowering spaces for people who have been marginally and traditionally and historically oppressed. जब तक ये स्पेसेस खाली नहीं होगा, जब तक ये स्पेसेस हम नहीं बनाएंगे साथ मिलके, तब तक कुछ नहीं होगा. So I hope we also look to talk more about how to create solutions, right? But to answer your question, and I will not dominate this discussion, I will go back and give the mic over to Yashika, but that is the answer. Basically that is what it is. Abhi foreign media mein, if I talk about, हाल ही में जाके even advertise होता है, we are looking for people from, that too nobody mentions caste, they say diverse candidates, diversity and inclusion ढूंढ रहे हैं हम. अब diversity में disability है, diversity में LGBT community है, diversity में caste है, diversity में religion है. आप अगर एडिटर का पोजीशन खाली हुआ है, उसके लिए आप एडवर्टाइज कर रहे हो. अगर आप साफ साफ नहीं बोलोगे कि वी आर लुकिंग फॉर अ कैंडिडेट फ्रॉम दीज दिस कम्युनिटी टू टेल द स्टोरीज ऑफ दोस कम्युनिटी, तो आगे बढ़ के नहीं आएंगे. वी हैव नोटिस दिस प्रॉब्लम विद विमेन, द जेंडर विमेन, कि जब तक आप विमेन नहीं बोलोगे दैट दिस पोजीशन इज फॉर विमेन, विमेन आके हाथ नहीं बढ़ाएंगे कि मुझे भी अप्लाई करना है. नहीं करते हैं, हिस्टोरिकली नहीं करते हैं, क्योंकि उतना अपॉर्चुनिटीज ही नहीं था. when I'm looking at this binary of men women, the dominant gender and other gender spectrum nahi hai. Now if you're comparing women with queer people, women are the dominant people, right, who identify as women, because historically they have been oppressed. So that's what I'm saying, that unless we fill the positions, top positions, with people from oppressed communities and oppressed castes, nahi aayega badlav. Stories will be, certain, with seen through a certain lens, unless we call out, unless we give an open call for filling positions, newsrooms may, from all sorts of applicants, or especially create spaces. I am not saying open it to all people. I am saying create specific places for Dalit women, for Dalit journalists, for Dalit men. जब तक कि ये नहीं होगा, you cannot ask somebody who is oppressed to fight a marathon along with everybody else. ये नहीं हो सकता है, क्योंकि उनको वो मैराथन दौड़ने के लिए शुरू से ही उनका मदद नहीं हुआ है. So that's where we are. Yashika, over to you.
So Prakash, are you going to ask me a different question, or
please,
is this something you wanted to respond to?
Please continue over that. Like, I really want to listen to what your thoughts are on this.
तो मतलब आपका जो क्वेश्चन था कि इफ आई रिमेम्बर करेक्टली, एंड करेक्ट मी इफ आई एम रॉन्ग, कि आपने ये बोला कि जब आप स्पेशली इंटरनेशनल मीडिया में पिच करते हैं तो यू फील लाइक आपको अपने ओप्रेस्ड होने का सर्टिफिकेट देना पड़ता है, पहली बात तो, और सेकेंडली आपको ये समझाना पड़ता है कि क्या होता है दलित, क्या होती है कास्ट, एंड आई 100% एग्री विद यू. ये एक्सपीरियंस मेरे साथ लगभग हर रोज होता है. If I'm, and I'm an independent journalist, I'm not affiliated with any organization. तो मतलब अगर आप freelancer हैं मेरे जैसे, तो आपको explain करना पड़ता है कि caste क्या है और उसमें location क्या है मेरी, और फिर उसके बाद ये explain करना पड़ता है कि क्यों ये story important है. तो मतलब I want to go back to the same idea कि कैसे media narratives construct किए जाते हैं caste के बारे में, and what we need to understand is that these are, like you were mentioning, the idea of being spoon-fed. This narrative is being spoon-fed by the Savarna editors who are already a part of these newsrooms. And agar, जैसे कि if in the US, for example, if I talk about it, अगर यहाँ लोगों को कास्ट के बारे में नहीं मालूम है, तो it's not an accident. It is by design. क्योंकि इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ने डर्बन में 2001 में जब एंटी रेसिज्म और एंटी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन काफी पॉपुलर कॉन्फ्रेंस था ये ऑर्गेनाइज्ड बाय यूएन, तो when they were talking about including caste as a form of discrimination along with racism and other forms of marginalization, Indian government ने step up को करके ये बोला कि caste हमारा internal matter है और आप इसके बारे में बात ना करें तो बहुत अच्छा होगा, हम खुद संभाल लेंगे. और ये जो आइडिया है जैसे कि इंडिया में जो बहुत प्रेवलेंट है कि हम खुद देख लेंगे, डोंट वॉश आवर डर्टी लिनन इन पब्लिक, अपनी घर की बातें सबको मत बताओ, ये रूट लेवल से स्टार्ट होकर, मतलब जमीनी लेवल से स्टार्ट होकर इंस्टीट्यूशनल लेवल तक हमको देखने को मिलता है. जैसे कि आप अगर सिमिलर एग्जांपल डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस का देखेंगे अगर, और अगर आपको पता है कि एक घर में देयर इज अ मैन हु इज फिजिकली असॉल्टिंग हिज वाइफ और एनी ऑफ द फीमेल मेंबर्स, आप अगर उनकी घंटी बजाएंगे तो वो बोलेंगे हमारा आपस का मामला है, हम खुद संभाल लेंगे, आप इसके बारे में बात मत कीजिए. तो ये जो एटीट्यूड्स है हमारे साउथ एशिया में जो देखने को मिलते हैं, दे स्टार्ट फ्रॉम where we are from, right from our homes, और ये एटीट्यूड जाता है इंस्टीट्यूशनल इंटरनेशनल लेवल तक. आपके नेबर भी आपको ये बोल रहे हो जो अपनी वाइफ को असॉल्ट कर रहा है, वो आपको कह रहा है कि हमारा जमीनी मामला है, आपकी गवर्नमेंट भी आपको ये बोल रही है कि हमारा घर का मामला है. तो मतलब दिस एटीट्यूड जस्ट रिंग्स ट्रू एवरीवेयर, एंड आई थिंक इट इज वन ऑफ द रीजंस दैट पीपल डोंट नो अबाउट कास्ट. आप देखिए, मतलब दादा साहेब जी ने हॉलोकॉस्ट के बारे में थोड़ा सा मेंशन किया, एंड इट इज सच अ ब्रूटल एस्पेक्ट ऑफ ग्लोबल हिस्ट्री जिसके बारे में जानना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है. और ये जो अट्रोसिटीज जूश लोगों के साथ की गई थी, एट द एंड ऑफ वर्ल्ड वॉर 2, हम लोग इंडिया में अभी रह रहे हैं, द लेस सेड द बेटर अबाउट द सिचुएशंस दैट वी आर इन, वी आर ऑन अ जेनोसाइड वॉच अगेंस्ट मुस्लिम पीपल. तो मतलब there is so much that we need to think about, but if we look at it कि जो holocaust की atrocities और जो pain और जो trauma है उसके बारे में दुनिया भर में लोगों को मालूम है, क्योंकि Jewish लोगों ने decide किया they will never forget. This is one of the slogans that come out from the community. Let's never forget. Let's talk about these atrocities. Let's talk about this trauma. Let's talk about this violence. And also the world over supported this, because वो मतलब इतनी हद तक बात बिगड़ गई थी, गैस चेम्बर्स, कंसंट्रेशन कैंप्स, कि लोगों का मतलब उससे मुंह मोड़ लेना, उसको डिनाई करना इम्पॉसिबल हो गया था. And not to compare the two, but the fact is that caste is a hidden form of violence that is comparable to fascism. This is something that has been documented by academics across the world. ये मेरा thesis नहीं है, ये काफी लोगों ने already इसके बारे में, अगर आप Isabel Wilkerson's Caste पढ़ेंगे, उसमें भी उन्होंने she talks about 3 different forms of discrimination that are the most prominent in the world. One of them is Nazi history and Nazi discrimination of Jewish people, racism against Black people in the United States, and the third that she talks about is India's caste system. तो मतलब ये 3 इतने dangerous और oppressive systems India, मतलब पूरे globally 3 oppressive systems को identify किया गया है. और आप ये सोचिए कि 2 के बारे में सबको पता है और तीसरे के बारे में कोई बात नहीं करना चाहता, तो वो क्यों है? It's because it is designed to not be talked about. This attitude कि हमारे घर की बात है, हम इसके बारे में खुद बात करेंगे, आप इसके बारे में मत बात कीजिए, comes from the Savarna institutions. आप अगर हमारी मीडिया देखेंगे, ब्यूरोक्रेसी देखेंगे, जुडिशरी देखेंगे, मिनिस्ट्री देखेंगे, हर कोई अपर कास्ट है, oppressor कास्ट है, डोमिनेंट कास्ट है, सवर्णा कास्ट है. वो डिसाइड करते हैं कि क्या दलितों के बारे में लिखा जाएगा, क्या कास्ट के बारे में लिखा जाएगा. With the exception of बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर, there have been very few Dalits जिनके पास कोई भी पावर रहा है कुछ भी चेंज इंस्टीट्यूट करने के लिए, कोई भी चेंज लाने के लिए. हमारे पास कोई पावर नहीं है, हम लोग एक दुख के लोग हैं. मूक नायक is now building itself to be a place of power, but ultimately we don't have the power to change things because we have been historically marginalized. अब जब आप इस historical marginalization में देखेंगे तो हमारे पास मतलब जो कास्ट का नैरेटिव ऑलरेडी सेट किया गया है, हमें वो ही मतलब हमारी सौगात है वो, that narrative of caste. Now people like us, whether it's you've been writing internationally, I've been doing some work, there are so many like Ambedkar International Center, which is like really powerful in the United States. Now that narrative is being challenged. And I want to say one thing, taking it back to why we don't hear about caste. It's because caste Hindus, जैसे कि बाबा साहब ने बोला है, caste Hindus in the United States oppose this idea that caste should be taught. In 2016 or 2017, you can check the sort of fact check the dates, but in California, there was a historic issue about including the word caste in textbooks. जहाँ की मतलब कैलिफोर्निया स्टेट में जो टेक्स्ट बुक्स थी स्कूल के बच्चों की, उसमें ये कैलिफोर्निया गवर्नमेंट ने डिसाइड किया कि हम कास्ट के बारे में बच्चों को पढ़ाएंगे, बताएंगे कि इंडिया की हिस्ट्री क्या रही है. उसका रिस्पॉन्स ये था, कास्ट हिंदूज का, अपर कास्ट लोगों का ये रिस्पॉन्स था कि अगर आप कास्ट के बारे में बताओगे तो हमारे बच्चों को बुलीड फील होगा. इंस्टेड ऑफ एक्नॉलेजिंग कि उनकी क्या हिस्ट्री है, उन्होंने ये बोला कि हमारे बच्चों के साथ बुरा व्यवहार होगा, तो हमारी बातों के मतलब हमारे ऑप्रेशन के बारे में, हमारी प्रिविलेज के बारे में आप बात मत करो क्योंकि हम लोग को बुरा लगेगा. That's their reasoning. And if you look at more recently, California State University, all the colleges have decided this historical this historical move, जिसके बारे में आपने पढ़ा भी होगा, they've decided to include caste in the anti-discrimination policy, along with gender, along with sexuality, along with disability, along with race. Now caste is going to be a factor that's considered. और इसको opposition कहाँ से आया? 80 faculty members who are in California, who are ostensibly Hindu, उन्होंने ये बोला कि हमारे को oppression feel होगा अगर आप अपने caste discrimination के बारे में बात करोगे. So what is this if nothing else than a play to preserve their power? उन्होंने अभी तक मीडिया नैरेटिव को, एकेडमिक नैरेटिव को कंट्रोल करके रखा है. आप सिर्फ मीडिया की बात मत देखिए, आप एकेडेमिया देखिए. यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स में हर कॉलेज में, दादा साहेब आई एम श्योर कैन टॉक अबाउट दिस, हर कॉलेज में एकेडमिक्स, इंडियन एकेडमिक्स आर crammed, they are filled. Every college has some Indian academics. Most of them are upper caste. They decide whether they want to talk about caste or not. So if you are not listening about caste in India, in international newsrooms, if people across the world don't know about caste, it's because Indians, upper caste Indians, don't want them to know about caste. And which is why it is so difficult for people who are Dalit, for people who are marginalized, to even raise these issues. इसलिए हम और आप जैसे लोग जब हम स्टोरीज पिच करने जाते हैं, हम सिर्फ स्टोरी पिच नहीं करते हैं, हम अपनी ट्रॉमा पिच करते हैं. हम ये बताते हैं कि देखिए हमारे साथ क्या हुआ है. हर बार we have to talk about how it has been a traumatizing experience for us to be a marginalized person. And only then we are considered worthy to tell our story. And that's my point. Our stories are worthy only when they are built on top of Dalit trauma. If we are not given the due that we should be given as intellectuals, we are only given the due when we talk about our pain. And that is unfortunately a sad fact that exists internationally across the world in all newsrooms.
Yeah. So building on that, I would like to ask Dada Sahib, like now that caste has been included in the Kyle state's policy for on discrimination, can you and now like also the a lot of Savarna organization, Hindu organizations are fighting back. Like for example, how Yashika told 80 faculty members wrote a letter, like so what do you think about this, like the people who have been oppressing the Dalits and Adivasis for like thousands of years, now when Dalits and Adivasis are raising their voices and are coming at a position of power, not even like it's a wrong term, I guess. It's not position of power, but at least that's like they are getting recognized, they're fighting back. Like can it like give some insights and comments on this, because you are working in these university spheres and yeah.
Again, like um, I would like to again start by quoting Dr. Ambedkar. Why it is happening? Because he says, "Educate, agitate, organize." This is our second generation. Me and Ishika are talking in English, which has been understood by global people and all that. And our forefathers could not speak this language, which other people understood. Now we have learned that language. We have educated ourselves. Now we are agitating and we'll organize. And talking on positive note, like even when it came to Black Lives Matters or when it came to blacks, whites were with them. When it came to annihilation of caste movement, Dr. Ambedkar's wife, second wife, is a Brahmin, and the person who burnt Manusmriti was his Brahmin friend, and one who stood with him were oppressed caste people. So I'm going back to Rituparna. That has made a mark in my head. Collaboration. This can only happen with collaboration. My stories can be understood someone who is empathetic to humanity, and that humanity cannot be lost, and no caste, no region, no religion, no race can, like while sleeping every human being would be feeling himself as a human being, and that humanity has to be raised. And it is role of oppressed communities like me and like us who can do that. How we can do that? We have to like model it. We have to like, when I'm talking in like Western globe, we have to caste competitize everyone, discuss about it. Now this discussion would be is a very good example. Like this can be opportunity for other people to learn what caste system is or what caste operation, what it goes beyond the narrations which it has been misappropriated with them or discussed with them. And California State University, or before that Brandeis University in Boston, which actually included caste, they are examples of collaboration. Because not only like if it was only the responsibility of oppressed caste communities, and that to bring that change in US or Western globe, which is nearly like impossible for me to discuss or even to dream about it. But with professors who were conscientized with caste, with academics which were being discussed by caste, who felt empathetic, who felt that this issue is much more bigger than what it has been discussed or been debated so far, they came forward, they agreed to it, and now they have included to it and they have recognized it. In same way, I feel like low hanging fruits, like when it comes to media here in US or any media houses in across the globe, the low hanging fruit should be allies. Like for example, instead of going to the extreme right or going to the platform which is dominated by, as Rituparna said, with their surnames. So going, instead of going with them, we can go to the much closer, like maybe someone which is governed, or which has been discussed, or which discusses a lot about people of color or Q or anything, because they may have that empathy towards our pain, because they are also going through some pain, and that can be our one model, or that can be one of our effort. But it is not going to stop. Like saying all these things, you support, don't support, we get support, not support. Now we are talking, now we have understood what language you understand, now we are empowered ourselves, we are educated ourselves with that language, with that education, and with that everything. That's why people with that post or with that positions are uncomfortable. I feel they are uncomfortable because there's power positions and the supremacy, which is farce, which was been governed because of the structure they built themselves, of like reaching to those places, is at threat, because people are trying to dismantle it, people are trying to annihilate that, and the process has already begun, the process has already started. So such platforms and we people are part of that, and should be part of that, and we should include more and more people here. And and I very like correctly understand that Holocaust or other issues, black issues, are very been discussed by international media or all these things, because it happened at once, or it happened like constantly in some place, very this thing. But caste discrimination happens every moment, every breath. Like someone, you go wearing a good clothes from dominant caste community, you will listen and laugh, and that cannot be discussed, or that cannot be documented in your and you are not documented that in your books or in your theories and all that. But the feeling which that person with the new clothes go, you have never understood that. And that happens every second, everyone. Some girl getting educated and going on cycle in these things, the the taunts or the discussions, like whatever she hears, she has never told even to her father, because as Ishika rightly said, we are built to internalize our oppression. And especially my community women, they have like they have beard like all kind of operations, and they have stood, like they are still standing, because they have a hope that someday it will change. They see that change happening in one of educated person like me, or some of even they go and pray that someday it will change. Although they are denied to go to temples, they still pray those in that those temples, that one day my operation will go, or one day my children will do this thing. That hope is bringing or making them to sustain their pain. And with the education or with the systems which are like taking ideas, or with the support of the other people, or people who understood our empathy, has given us opportunity, or has brought us at the platforms where at least we are making our spaces. I feel like I feel very positive, I feel very optimistic about that a person like me, who was in village without a light, even in a village without a light, right now sitting where he gets hot water in his shower, is a big leap in lifetime. It's a big leap for me, and I know my next generation is going to build on that. And my next person who in my generation or in my life is going to sit here and go beyond me, because after listening to me and stories from my perspective, that person or that generation is going to understand or empathize, and they are going to be much more powerful than what I am right now, because they will have everything. They will have platform, they will have language, and they will not have that internalized oppression. Because what although I'm talking to right now, I know that I'm actually feeling that someone will write something on social media and all that. Still I have that fear in internally. But my next generation will not have that fear, because they will have that language, they will have everything, they will have all the resources to talk to you or give back to you in whatever language you understand or you like to get back it. And when I'm saying this, I'm not saying that change of socialism into communism. I'm not talking about that antithesis and thesis. We are going to go towards social justice. We are going to go towards sustainable development. And these oppressed communities are going to get enhanced with their all instruments and with all that languages to one day educate you, de-learn you, or concertize you. And we are hoping that this earth, before climate change, this earth will end in peace, or this planet will go towards peace.
Jai Bhim to that. Finally, like this is my final question. It's not exactly a question, but please. So basically, like we know, like these international editors are not very, like don't take caste as a very important issue in India. But like when I started freelancing in international media, like obviously they were rejecting my pitches, my stories. So आफ्टर अ व्हाइल आई वाज फ्रस्ट्रेटेड एंड लाइक एकदम धरने पे बैठ जाना कि नहीं तुम्हें लेनी पड़ेगी स्टोरी, मैं समझाता हूँ तुम्हें. सो देयर इज दिस एडिटर फ्रॉम टाइम मैगजीन like I convinced them to like just call me up and I'll explain you like what caste system is, and like they were kind enough, like they called me and they actually listened to me. So like although I think that was a very unnecessary struggle for me because I shouldn't have to do that, right? So I just wanted to know, like, what do these editors from India who are from Indian origin should do to like make space for Dalits and Adivasis, like not just in their stories or characters in their stories, but also Dalit and Adivasi writers. So Rituparna ma'am, if you could add to that.
They won't. Short and brutal answer. So, what is the way to go forward? If I say they won't, I take away the hope from a whole generation of young journalists, Dalit journalists, Bahujan journalists who want to aspire. A brilliant example मेरे सामने है. A few months ago, a lot of not a lot, but a few Dalit journalists, young people, they crowdfunded their education in Harvard and Oxford and these foreign universities. फॉरेन ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस कहाँ से हायर करते हैं, किसको प्रायोरिटाइज करते हैं? दे हायर दिस क्रीम ऑफ क्रीम फ्रॉम दीज फॉरेन यूनिवर्सिटीज, एंड जहां से व्हेन दे कम बैक टू इंडिया दे आर हायर्ड. एंड आई फील there is a need right now to go back to the very basic roots, that is education, the one thing that can absolutely transform a person's life. The fact that education has been restricted to so many, the minute you talk about reservation, for example, on social media platforms, you have so many people coming in and saying that, oh, it is merit, this, that, right? So I feel the root of the issue is access to education. Premier, not just education. India में free education भी है, but not just education. Premier top education, top universities. Agar there are gatekeepers in that, crowdfund it. So I feel that was brilliant examples of young Dalit people who raised the money. And in a few days, and I was thrilled that it took just a few hours, few days to sort of crowdfund that sort of entry fee to foreign universities. If that is one way of going forward, and that is one way of creating a second line of journalists who come from oppressed communities, and who don't have to go, if I were to address your question again, who don't have to depend on the mercies of journalists of South Asian origin for their stories to get picked. They will be the editors of South Asian origin and from Dalit origins, who will write their own stories and who will pave the next the road for other writers from oppressed communities to come in. So that is the goal. That is the goal. And if like when we are talking about, for example, misogyny and patriarchy in India, we always say that whenever I tweet from the India Me Too handle, of Dalit stories, of atrocities stories, and pressing the police to take cognizance or whatever, I'm always told, why have you named the caste of the victim? Isme kya caste ki kya baat hai? But the thing is, and more, why I'll connect the two. The reason why caste needs to be mentioned when these stories happen is because the violence happens because of their caste. It is not generic violence. The violence is directed at them because of their caste. Similarly, these stories, when are being told in international media or Indian media by people from various diverse backgrounds, it is of imperative कि वो अपनी stories खुद बता रहे हैं. So that is, I feel, one big way that education has to be, agar crowdfund karna ho to crowdfund kijiye, kaise bhi ho. And the other thing is to talk to, when say I am from the Savarna community, when we are talking of collaboration, Dada Saheb ji ne bola jo collaboration ki baat, you don't have to talk, you have to talk amongst your own community first. मुझे लगता है Dalits know what they face in India. We don't, as Savarna people, don't have to go to the Dalits to talk about their issues. They have to talk to other Savarna people of, how to make and educate them and make them aware of how to create these spaces. Collaborate not just with Dalit people and Bahujan and Adivasi people, collaborate among, collaborate and change your own community. How many Savarna journalists go back and talk? Journalists are aware, journalists are, they are in the thick of things. Do they go home and discuss these issues with their, say their wives or their spouses or partners? Do they ask, do they take, this self-awareness and acknowledging of privileges is, I think, the second step which can bridge these gaps. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that talking amongst the Savarna community and for those who can, for those who for whom it's not too late, will eventually lead to change from within.
So coming to you, Yashika ma'am, like what do you think?
Yashika,
like,
please, no, ma'am.
so, like how like what are the solutions? Like of course it is important like for the Dalit Adivasi community to be recognized in the international spaces, but how should it be done? Like what should be the steps?
Yeah, I guess this is something that we need to discuss here and now. And I so 100% agree with Rituparna when she says that they're not going to do it. And we don't have to be at their mercy. And this is not something that we should wait around for. ये हमको line में खड़े होके ये तो ब्राह्मणों का काम है भिक्षा मांगना. We don't do this. We have to go and take it. We have to create our own people who, one of the things I've always said, ki aap with education, with working hard, with working on your craft, when you make yourself so powerful and in a position of prominence कि आपको कोई आपका जो given talent है वो कोई deny ही नहीं कर सकता, they will be forced to acknowledge who you are. Like, if I can just, for example, speak from experience, my experience, how it worked was that I did not use traditional media. I worked in Indian media for about 8 years. I hid my caste. I did not talk about caste. I wrote on fashion. I wrote on lifestyle. Hindustan Times and many other newspapers where I worked, Asian Age included, I did not talk about these issues because जैसे कि ऋतुपर्णा ने कहा कि हमेशा एक वो रहता है कि वहां पे तो कोई कास्ट डिनाई कर रहा है, कोई बोल रहा है तुम अगर मायावती के बारे में लिख रहे हो तो तुम्हारे को समझ नहीं है पॉलिटिकल इश्यूज की, कोई कह रहा है दलितों को तो सिर्फ एक ही चीज के बारे में बात करना पसंद होता है, कोई एंटी रिजर्वेशन पे बात कर रहा है. तो द एटमॉस्फेयर कैन बी सो टॉक्सिक within Indian newsrooms that it can be very difficult. So when I decided that I needed to talk about this issue, which was for me the last letter of Rohit Vemulla, I did not go to a newspaper to do it. I did it online, on social media, right? And that's when the viral movement, thanks to Dalit people, thanks to the Bahujan people, thanks to allies, it became so strong that mainstream outlets, who till then had never talked about caste, were forced to talk about caste. Now, of course, this is very difficult and it is putting the onus of exceptionalism on Dalit people. हम उनको बोल रहे हैं कि आपको सुपर ह्यूमन बनना पड़ेगा अगर आप अपनी आवाज किसी तक पहुंचाना चाहते हो, which is not fair and which is not okay. So what we need to do is to target these institutions and these systems that ensure that we can only get a voice if we are superlative. It's a very common trope agar aap dekhenge US mein, among black people, among African American people, only the ones who are exceptional, just matlab sirf exceptional unki talent mein nahi, sab kuch line karna chahiye. वो हार्वर्ड भी गए हैं, उन्होंने मतलब सारे स्पोर्ट्स क्लब्स में भी पार्टिसिपेट किया है, उनको एक्टिंग भी आती है, उनको सब कुछ आता है, तभी वो उनको चूज किया जाएगा कि वो एक black person will be allowed to be an editor. You have to be superhuman, you have to be exceptional. But if you look at white editors, they don't have to be exceptional. They can be regular, they can be just good at one thing or one of the many things, and they will be chosen. So what we need to do is, I mean, of course, these are intellectual ideas, and I will come to concrete solutions, but I think intellectually, we need to think about how these systems work and why does it take for a Dalit person to do a superhuman effort in order to be recognized? Speaking of you, you had to convince an editor at time to call you back. And that only happens, we know that happens once in 1,000 times. It almost never happens. That was such a rare chance of luck. So we have to put ourselves through grueling steps to get our stories heard. And what is the way to counter that? One of the ways to counter that is to build a coalition of Dalit journalists. Now, of course, this next generation, which is getting ready, there are so many brilliant, talented folks who are Dalit now in international universities who will now be able to then influence these institutions. But until that happens, we cannot just sit still. We have to still make changes. We have to make an effort. And one of the ways to do that is to do coalitions, not necessarily with people who are in positions of power, people who are like white editors or Savarna editors, but people who are marginalized. I think what's important is to create solidarity with people, like Dada Sahib was saying earlier, who have experienced the same pain and trauma that we've experienced. If we are in the United States, Dada Sahib alluded to this earlier, go write for a black publication. Go write for an indigenous publication where you will have a greater chance of being heard. You will have a greater chance of having your story being told and talked about empathetically, because people who have gone through that trauma understand what it means to have your story told. And also, especially in my work, it's definitely built on a lot of scholarship that comes from the Black community, where they have already thought about these issues, like I would say a couple of decades ago, that we're thinking about now. I'm not saying this is not to compare, but I'm just saying, how can we learn from what already exists, and how can we build on these coalitions within international media? Let's talk of countries. Let's look at making connections and solidarities with journalists from Africa who are fighting the same fight. Why should we only rely on Western media? Which is not to say that New York Times and Washington Post and Time Magazine aren't the biggest, most widely read publications in the world. They are, but what I'm trying to say is this power in numbers. When there's a coalition of Dalit journalists, Black journalists working together, then it will be harder to ignore us than just one person making a call and trying to get the story across. When you come across as a group, that's the strength, that's the solidarity. So if you're a Dalit journalist, you're listening to this conversation and you want to sort of break in internationally, my advice to you would be find people who already, you don't need to convince about your trauma, who already understand the importance of caste. And believe me, there are many publications that exist that are maybe not at the top tier, but that are doing a lot of good work. So one of the active strategies is to build allies, people like you, with people who understand. Allyship can come from white editors, cannot, मतलब we can't, हम उसके लिए इंतजार नहीं कर सकते, ना ही हम उनके दरवाजे पे खड़े होके ये नॉक करते रहेंगे कि आप प्लीज हमें अंदर आने दीजिए. We have to now be grouped, have strength in numbers, and we have to break those barriers in. अकेला इंसान भले ही उन barriers को नहीं तोड़ पाएगा, पर अगर आपके पास ग्रुप की strength है, coalition की strength है, तो आप दीवारों पे भी you can go across and break them. I think that's my whole advice to everybody. Find people like you, build strength in numbers, build coalitions, and do it together. Remember, you're not alone, especially now.
Yeah. Thank you, Yashika. Dada, if you want to add on that, please.
Thank you so much, Rituparna and Deshika. It was so fascinating for me. I'm actually learning from you guys as well. Like, so the grammar of journalism and how to pitch yourself. And yes, whatever they have said, any young journalist listening to this, please take notes of that. So it may help you to go to the standards what they have achieved and they are making for yourself. So yes, we have one more listener. Hi. Finally. So so just adding to what Rituparna and Ishika has said, being a student of social exclusion and inclusion and talking about systemic operation and all this other institution discrimination, as I see racism, gender, and caste system as a structural inequity. And when it is structural inequity, the highest solution or the highest stake lies in the government and in the society. For at societal level, it's a marathon, it's a long process of concentration, learning, and de-learning. The shortest and the most effective thing what we can do is to include the excluded and exclude the included, and it can happen only through structural change. And how that can come through policy. And how policy can be changed, that can come through advocacy. When it comes to advocacy, oppressed communities organizations or their allies of having common operation should come together, like organize themselves in the form of organizations and pitch the issues at politics, at events, or at the media houses, writing a white paper, writing letters, or writing all anything which they feel are objectionable happening in their organizations or in their institutes, and which is violating their own guidelines or their own constitutions. Just question them and just tell them what solutions can be, and it will help. And this is advocacy, and this can happen or this can bring change, which has brought change. Like, because as Ishika told about Durban conference, although caste was not discriminated in apartheid, because of the preaching and advocacy, caste was added to the discrimination at workplace because of manual scavenging. It was added to the discrimination at workplace discrimination category. So same way, and it comes from a theory or it comes from the literature. The literature of exclusion and inclusion says that where uh, to end disparities in health or in education, everything, the solution could be include teachers, include health professionals from diverse or from excluded communities. It helps or it comforts the students or it comforts the patient or it comforts everyone to go to this place and learn more or to make good use of that. Same way, the movement in media houses will include diverse population from oppressed communities or regions, religions, everyone. The more stories would come from those community of people with which will have genuine voices. So, and this can happen through structural change, this can happen through policy. And when US constitution and when US government is committed for diversity, it is in their every document they make efforts. Now it's our like role of organizations and role of journalists like us to question them on their how media houses, or if they don't have any media house which runs from public private partnership like BBC and all that, it is high time to give them a social innovative solution that US government can have a public house or have a media house which has partnership with public and with the private, where they can take up these issues of oppressed communities. This is what I see from in the lenses of including the excluded. And when doing this, the most important thing right now, what I feel with the discussion is raise your own consciousness. And Rituparna's best solution is Savarna people, please go and talk to yourself. Don't talk to us. Don't tell us what we should do and all that. Please discuss among yourself and come to that advocacy. These things on with us so that we'll appreciate your efforts. By saying this, I really want to like thank everyone for giving this opportunity to talk.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you all the panelists. Thank you for joining with us and like sharing so much informative stuff to us and to our viewers. And like good night to Rituparna ma'am and good morning, I guess.
Good morning. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, good morning.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to Muknaik again.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. It was so informative. I want to echo what Dada Sahib said. There was so much to learn, and I can't congratulate Muknaik enough. Please keep organizing these conversations, keep bringing these issues up. I'll look forward. I cannot wait to see you guys accomplish more and more. My good wishes are with you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.